I know, business I know, everything.
Greetings from Castle Goring, from Mickey, Aurora, and from me. Well, I have a lot of ground to cover, so without further ado, I am going to get rid of my beautiful girls, and I am going to plunge right in. So if I may, I will just put them to one side. Are you happy to go, Aurora? Well, Aurora says she's sitting right by my side for the moment. The first question really relates to the members only channel, and I need to put it on this channel so that everybody who can't get onto the members only channel will be able to know. It's being worked out. I have my son and my techie guys on it, so evidently some people find it easy, other people find it difficult, because it's something to do with iPhones and Samsung and Apple. I'm not even going to try to explain, because I have no idea what they're talking about. But AB says, Lady C, interested your new channel. In your next video, could you please tell us more about what the content will be and how often you will upload to it? Many thanks. Well, the content is going to be Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, the same as this channel, without any advertisements and whatever the perks are that have been worked out. And on all the other days, there is going to be an upload. Each day there will be an upload. Slightly shorter than the Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday videos, which I'm not reducing in length. So those of you who've expressed concerns that you're going to end up with half the content, no, you're not. Okay, so hopefully that answers the question. And now I can address what A. Blackmore says. Dear Lady C, the older woman, quotation marks, has now apparently come forward. We are all aghast to realize that this was no mummy replacement figure, but a girl maximum 3 years older than the man-child, though some have speculated closer to 2 years. But this is harder to determine with the information currently available. Am I the only one who realizes that this age gap is the one he has currently with his wife? Does this mean he believes she is an older woman? Was this an embellishment, my wifey stroke ghostwriter, that has gone horribly wrong? This is so funny. Or is the man-child honestly this messed up clueless that he wanted someone older? The mind boggles. Though, if it was an embellishment a la wifey, then she clearly didn't think this one through. Care to speculate? Thank you. A. Blackmore, I do care to speculate. It's such fun. Well, her name is Sasha Walpole. She was born Sasha Alvin, and she is 2 years, 2 months, and 2 weeks older than Harry, which means that she is younger than Meghan. Well, Jocasta was a lot older than Oedipus. So I rest my case there, although Oedipus didn't think that Jocasta was his mother. But Oedipus Bates wants a mummy, and a mummy that when he rubs Elizabeth Arden cream on his todger, he will be able to remember Mummy. Very, very weird, I would have said. So, does that mean he believes Meghan is an older woman? I think he loves the fact that Meghan is an older woman. That was one of the appeals. Dominatrix and submissive. Yin and yang. Ancient and modern. Well, I tell you, I think the whole thing is supremely tasteless. The world in which I grew up and in which I still function takes the view that a man who speaks about a woman he has been intimate with is a cad. I've never known any of my relations, my cousins, my father, to ever discuss the performance of a woman. I've never known any man with whom I was involved to discuss the performance of a woman. Ironically enough, it's acceptable for women to discuss the performance of a man as long as, I suppose, it's positive. But a man, never. A man who discusses a woman he has been intimate with is a cad. It is an ironclad, not hard and fast rule. Well, Harry, of course, discussed it and used a very pejorative term to discuss it. Of course, he bigged himself up in that he's a stallion, raring to go, and went. And loads of people knew who it was. My children used to play with Harry and William at the Beaufort Polo Club, where she used to hang out as well. She was a groom on the Highgrove estate. That's how she met Harry. She is 2 years, 2 months, 2 weeks older than he is, as I just said. Therefore, they are contemporaries. Well, it was only a matter of time before she was rumbled. And indeed, my understanding is that the Mail on Sunday discovered who she was, and that she didn't go to them, they went to her. And they have handled the matter very decorously. And I take my hat off to them. And as you know, I'm often critical of the Mail on Sunday. So if I say I doff my chapeau in their direction, I think it's safe to assume that it is well deserved. Being a groom, because in the horse world and in the racing world, and I've said this before, because my father's family was Jamaica's leading racing family for 40 years. And all my childhood memories, well, not all, but a goodly proportion of them, are caught up with going to see the horses exercise at 5 and 6 o'clock in the morning, going to the stables, going to yearling sales, seeing our horses run. Once when I was 12, of course, I've always been terrified of horses ever since I was thrown by a horse called Soldier Boy when I was 9. At 12, having to lead in our racehorse Samson, because no other representative of the family was at the racetrack at the time. Can't remember why it's so long ago. That's 61 years ago. And the racing world is absolutely, undeniably an egalitarian world. The only thing that matters in it, and in the horse world, because the horse world overlaps with the racing world, is that it's the skill of the people involved and their knowledge. And she and Harry were friends because she was his equal, effectively, being a groom. Well, she'd recently broken up with her boyfriend, and she asked him to join him at the Vine Tree pub on the 1st of July, her birthday, because he knew she was feeling a bit down. He bought 10 rounds of drinks. They knocked back 5 each. They then, towards the end of the evening, went out to have a cigarette, a Marlboro Light. And I'm going to quote what she says, because she says it very well and very elegantly. And it is a pity that Harry doesn't have a fraction of her elegance or decorum or naturalness. After making the point in the Mail on Sunday that she was relieved the truth had finally come out, which I understand is putting a good spin on things, because she never expected it to come out. She didn't expect a prince of the United Kingdom, much less a gentleman, or even any associate of hers, to ever betray the activities to which they had got up. And that obviously people would be able to identify her ultimately. So she said she was relieved that the truth had finally come out. And then I quote, "I don't have to worry anymore and I can get back to my life. I want to thank the Mail on Sunday for allowing me to tell my side. I'm not ashamed." Well, she has nothing to be ashamed of then, she says, plunging in. "There's no regret. It was a moment of madness and life is about experiences." She said that after they'd snuck outside to have the cigarette, they ended up clambering over a fence to make love in the field. He started to kiss me. It was passionate, intense. We both knew it went from a kiss onto the floor pretty quickly. It was instant, fiery, wham, bam between two friends. It was sparky because we shouldn't have been doing it. He wasn't Prince Harry to me. This was Harry, my friend. And the situation had got a little bit out of control. It felt naughty, I suppose, in the sense that it shouldn't be happening. We didn't set out to do it. It wasn't premeditated. And I didn't know he was a virgin. There were no virgin vibes. He seemed to know what he was doing. It was quick, wild, exciting. We were both drunk. It wouldn't have happened if we weren't. Tellingly, he never spoke to her afterwards. He was sober enough and perspicacious enough to walk to a telephone box, which was quite a distance away. That's right. Drunk as he was, he knew all about protecting the ass that he is proudly saying that she slapped. She slapped the stallion. Oof! Stallion. So he's happy to boast. He's happy to refer to it as inglorious, which I thought was totally unnecessary. And you talk about a put down. I mean, is this the sort of behavior that any decent person indulges in? And then to make out that she was an older woman. Poor Elizabeth Hurley had to deny that she was the victim, as it now turns out. And one or two other women with whom he had had affairs, all older, considerably older, had to deny it as well. What can I say? You really couldn't make this up. I think all good luck to Sasha Walpole. Her father knew absolutely nothing about it. Her father, Tony Alvis, is a groundsman, and her mother, Lynn, is a hotel cleaner. And she evidently told them about it the day after it happened. But the father didn't even listen. I suppose many fathers wouldn't want to hear of their daughters' social activities, to be decorous about it all. But of course, he had to focus his mind on it now that it was going to be in the newspapers because of Harry's crass indiscretion. Because make no mistake about it, it is not only crass, it is inconsiderate, it was uncalled for, and it is a vulgarism in every meaning of the word, which was calculated to boost sales for the book. Does this man have no modesty, no sense of decorum, no shame? I mean, honestly. Well, I say good luck to Sasha Walpole. She's come out of this with credit, with dignity. And now everybody knows to whom Harry lost his virginity. Well, I thought only women could be virgins. I didn't know that men could be virgins as well. I thought it was with whom he broke his duck was the expression. But I suppose in these days of everything being mixed up, even simple facts like a man can't be a virgin have eluded everybody. Eileen6496 says, Lady C laughing at the amount of classy, capital K, my dear. Cock your finger as you take tea. Classy crockery being smashed in Monty Shite show after your Getty announcement. You really should have more consideration for the environment. I mean, the landfill in Monty Shite show just can't cope. Yeah, I understand that they're worried that it's gonna cause, there's been so much crockery done into the infill that they're worried that it's going to separate the San Antonio fault even further. Anyway, to resume. On a more serious note, thank you for your channel. My pleasure. It makes having the Monty Shite Show menaces in my face daily more fun. Glad you think so. One has to try to make things that are basically gonna drag you down somehow uplifting, don't you think? I mean, to me, that's one of the secrets of life. Try to turn wherever possible a negative into a positive. But anyway, to not continue to interrupt myself, otherwise Mickey and Aurora are going to have to come and discipline their Matty. I no longer believe any royal news unless verified by the palace or yourself. Thank you, as 99% seems to emanate from the classy, capital K, hypocritical liars of Monty Shite Show. You can say that again. The wealth of misinformation is beyond belief. I do think it is funny that all the paid bots and PR are not having a positive impact on their public image. Ellen's party, all people are talking about is the fact that they were at opposite sides of the room. What do you believe are the top 3 reasons why they are failing so spectacularly? Do you believe they can ever recover? And I'm going to answer the question in the question itself and no more. I do not believe that they can recover. I think the world has been shown a side of them that the world didn't want to see and doesn't like. People of discernment don't like treachery, betrayal, whinging, whining, spoiled brats who are middle-aged and act as if they are victims when they are two of the most privileged people on earth and have a very great deal to be grateful for. And remember, they are complaining to people whose lives are infinitely more difficult, infinitely less privileged, with many fewer advantages, and some of whom have struggles to put food on the table and to heat their houses. And these are the people that they expect to give them sympathy. I mean, and actually money as well. Because this is not only done for pity, this is done for money. So I don't think they can recover. I don't think they will ever recover. I think if they are separated or divorced, he stands a slim chance of retrieving enough that he will be able to become a respected charity worker in Botswana, ultimately. But I think he will always be an embarrassment. And I think she doesn't stand a hope in hell of ever retrieving anything approximating a positive reputation. Why do I think the 3 reasons are that they have screwed it up so spectacularly? First of all, nobody likes an ingrate, and they have shown themselves to be ungrateful. They have shown themselves to be ungrateful to God for their blessings, to their families for all that they were given, to the British people for the fulsome welcome she received, and the affection in which he was held. So that's the first reason. Nobody likes an ingrate. Secondly, nobody likes spoiled brats. Nobody. Spoiled brats are a monumental pain. Everybody knows it, and people deplore the bad behavior that spoiled brats indulge in because they are anti-life. They are not life-enhancing. That's the second reason, I would say. And the third top reason is that they are unpleasant. They are unpleasant, and the unpleasantness manifests itself in their condescension, in their hypocrisy. This business of, we've got to fly in private jets and you're not allowed, you little people. Who do you think you are? You're not allowed to travel once a year. You got to think of the environment. They are unpleasant. They are disagreeable, and people ultimately don't like disagreeable people. They are unpleasant, and most people don't like unpleasantness. It is anti-life. They, in my opinion, embody anti-life. They don't embody life-enhancing beliefs or conduct. So, and the message they give is not pro-life, it's anti-life in the larger sense of the word. Elena George says, Lady C, can you comment on Cynthia Beck, Gordon Getty's mistress, and why didn't Anne Getty divorce Gordon after hearing of that long affair of Gordon's? Very good question. My dear, I'm going to sound insufferably snobbish when I say this, but in the upper reaches of society, marriage isn't only about the 1920s and 1930s Hollywood black and white. True love solves everything, and thereafter everybody lived happily ever after in a nice little house behind a white picket fence. First of all, divorce is expensive, and if it can be avoided, in my world and in my personal opinion, it should be avoided. Secondly, there is, if you're going to be married for life or for a long time, you are building a life together. Your personal feelings, your attractions should not interfere with the edifice that you are constructing to such an extent that you tear it down because of carnal gratification. I mean, in the world I come from, men are expected to stray, at least used to be expected to stray. And nobody thought a thing of it. And women, after they produced their children, as long as they lied, unless the men were extraordinarily open-minded, men didn't so much like their wives being known to be out and about. But if there was discretion, it was fine, you know. I mean, I've often said privately, why should a man want to eat steak 8 nights a week? Or even caviar? Why shouldn't he have a little bit of hamburger or fish occasionally? And what's good for the goose is good for the gander. That has been the traditional upper class way forever. Now, Anne Getty had a very structured marriage with Gordon Getty. She was a leading light philanthropically, socially, and to an extent musically. Why dismantle all of that? As I said to my mother once, I said, you know, when she was speaking about my father's romances to put it delicately. I said, well, I suppose you realised if you jumped out of your shoes, 1,000 were waiting to jump right in. And she said, that's right. And Getty knew that if she ceased to be Mrs. Gordon Getty, she was going to move down in the world. Why was she going to vacate a superior position for a mistress to occupy it? Doesn't make sense. Do you see how pragmatic the upper classes can be? Because marriage is maybe initially about love and about building a life together, but once you have a fairly solid life together, are you going to dismantle it and have the competition sit on your throne? I don't think so. So I hope I've explained it in as a realistic a way as possible, because ultimately, when people have worldly considerations above and beyond that which the average person has, they do think in terms of pragmatism. And they don't pussyfoot around about it. My grandmother, for instance, was always talking about how she was going to dispose of her assets. She made no secret about, when I'm dead this, when I'm dead that. You know, death was the end of life and it was going to be acknowledged, and what was going to happen after she was dead was also going to be acknowledged. So I hope that puts the pragmatic reason why it would not have made sense for Anne Getty to vacate her position. And also, sometimes you still love the man enough that you want the relationship to continue. You just accept the fact that you can't fill all his slots, and maybe he doesn't fill all of yours. It takes maturity and respect to have, well, a traditional aristocratic union. Let me put it that way. Diane Edwards says, "Thank you for helping me negotiate the treacherous waters I am currently experiencing re my aging and demented narcissistic mother. Been reading Daughter of Narcissus and finding it a comfort to know I am not alone." Diane Edwards, thank you so much for that. I've read it out because I get comments like this sometimes, and I get letters like this sometimes. And to me, it warms my heart to know that I did the right thing, because I did not want to write Daughter of Narcissus. It wasn't my idea. I've said it before, but to those of you who don't know, Erica Freeman, the eminent psychoanalyst, is the one who suggested I write it. And she told me that if I wrote it and wrote it properly, which I did, taking on board what she regarded as writing it properly, which meant a meaningful, truthful, accurate, incisive, excoriating account of what it is like to endure the narcissistic experience, she thought I would be doing other people good, and that I would be throwing them a lifeline, and that I would be showing them I had survived, they can survive, and I had flourished, and that they could flourish as well ultimately. And Erica, it turned out, was right. I was wrong. I didn't want to do it. And I also need to give credit to my two sisters who allowed me to do it. Because it's not only my mother, it's their mother as well. And it wasn't easy for them either. But they were big enough to say yes. So I've read it out because it means a lot to me to know that actually it is serving its purpose. You see, in life, nothing needs to go to waste. Nothing. To me, one of the secrets of life, a chemical approach. You know, the alchemist's stone, it's not turning base metal into gold, literally. It's turning the base metal of painful or counterproductive experience into the golden coinage of life enhancement. Irene Buckley says, I worked as a therapist. I gave up working when my mother became ill and I cared for her. Therapy should be conducted in a safe space, a private space. This is done for good reason. Therapy will open someone up. There are lots of schools of therapy. People can be in therapy for years and not be healed. Some types of therapy can make someone worse. When I trained as a therapist, part of the training was that the trainee therapists themselves had to undergo therapy themselves. We were a group of about 20. Within the first month, about 4 people quit. 2 guys had breakdowns. 3 women became unhinged. And 1 woman, sorry for laughing, was arrested after confessing to a serious crime. Oh, damn, that's not funny, but you have to laugh. The point is, yes, therapy can damage people. I would never place a vulnerable person into a public domain to overshare. That's way too much exposure. I couldn't agree more. I've had therapy. I've had treatment that was horrendous. When I was 13 years old, I was hospitalized by a husband and wife team. He was an internist, she was a psychiatrist. And she had the bizarre notion that she could shoot me up with male hormones and masculinize me. And that would force me to accept an identity which nature had not equipped me for. That was an unforgettable experience, to put it mildly. But that was enforced therapy. That was actually brutality. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. When my mother told me that Dr. Stam had died, and she had died painfully of cancer, I said, good. And she said, oh, it doesn't suit you in life, because Mummy always had to correct you no matter what you did. Oh, in life it doesn't suit you to be unkind. I said, I don't care whether it suits me to be unkind or not. The woman was an absolute bitch, and I'm glad she suffered. I said, I will never forget how she treated me, and I won't go into some of it because it was truly horrendous. And I will say one little thing she did that has stuck with me all my life was that, and I have very good veins, always did. And she, don't remember how many times it was, 10, 20, 15, 5, no, more than 5, maybe 12, 15, 20 times. She kept on stabbing me she was going to be knocking me out to administer insulin shock, and I knew it. And she purposely couldn't find a vein. The nurse had always found a vein. She had found a vein before, and there were veins popping out everywhere. And I looked at her, and she looked at me, and she gave me the unspoken message that this was a taste of the suffering that was in store for me, because she was going to prevail no matter what. And my wonderful therapist, Basil Panzer, to whom I owe an undying debt, because Basil helped me to heal and become whole and healthy. And Basil used to say to me, never forget that the caring professions attract a disproportionate percentage of sadists and sociopaths, because that gives them the opportunity and the forum and the basis for actually damaging people's lives. That's right. There are bad therapists who are evil, and there are bad therapists who are incompetent. There are good therapists, and they are not evil, and they are not incompetent. But I'm not saying all therapists are evil, because I had a therapist before Basil she was a very nice person. She simply wasn't up to the task. But she wasn't dangerous or damaging. But some therapists are dangerous and damaging. And a therapist who enables somebody who is suffering to continue suffering, because without pointing out to the patient, which all good therapists do, that it's okay to have things wrong with you. Everybody has things wrong with them. And the starting point is when you acknowledge that you have things wrong with you. And that is the way to liberation. That is the way to health. That is the way to be free of what is wrong with you, not reinforcing your failings. And it's not possible to be healthy if you embrace your failings, and refuse to allow them to get out of your way. I hope that explains a little bit. As for Harry's oversharing, it is not only crass, vulgar, and tasteless, and no gentleman should behave like that. But no decent person should behave like that. I've said it in my critique of his book. A book is not a confessional. It is not a therapy session. It, in my opinion, was crass of Harry, irresponsible of Harry, and truly shocking of a reputable publishing house, that they could put their financial interests before their overriding duty to the world, the whole world, including their professional reputations. Because really, truly respected publishers don't allow their writers to hoist themselves on their own petards. It Sims says, "Hello, Lady C. I love the members-only channel and wish continued success with this newest chapter. With regard to Dr. Persord, interviewers must agree to their format of submitting all questions and also to not ask forbidden questions. Therefore, they can never be challenged. Also, is Harry even in a legitimate licensed therapy arrangement? It seems to me that he's with a bunch of self-help quacks in another echo chamber who reinforce all his grudges and grievances, which magnifies all of it. Sad, and it will not end well." Well, it seems, may I say, I think you're confusing two things here. Harry's interviews, his interviews, are where the interviewer submits questions. This is a perfectly standard part of the interviewing process. The ground you are going to be covering is agreed upon before you cover it. A bad interviewer breaches that boundary. A good interviewer stays within it. I've said before, Joan Rivers was a fabulous interviewer because she appeared to be controversial and challenging, but in reality, she stayed well within the agreed upon parameters. Now, that's not the same thing as a therapy session. The therapist does not advise the patient of the ground that is going to be covered. It's just covered. It's supposed to be covered without there being an echo chamber, because the client may be, or the patient may be narcissistic, or, and let me rephrase it, the patient may be a narcissus, but the therapist is never supposed to be an echo. And when a therapist is intent upon keeping a patient for his or her own financial gain or reputational advantage, he or she is abusing the medical ethics which underpin decent therapy. But in terms of an interview, take it from me, I've been interviewed enough in the last 50 years. In most interviews, not press interviews, because the subject of the interview does not give permission to the writer. However, with a television interview, it has to be agreed before, because you, the subject of the interview, have to sign a release form, failing which the footage cannot be used and broadcast. So that's why the Anderson Coopers of this world gave Harry such a joyride, really. And that is why Tom Bradby, after he asked the awkward questions, which he was really obliged to ask. And Harry is now sufficiently au fait with the entertainment industry, because this is what we're talking about, not the royal world, the entertainment industry, to know that Tom Bradby had to ask him an awkward question or two. But the genius was that they actually kept in Tom Bradby's completely bewildered shock at Harry's statements. Had he said anything or pushed further, Harry would have called the whole interview to an end, and none of it would have been broadcast. But this way, we got a glimpse of the fact that Tom Bradby knew that what Harry was saying about the royal family and about him and Meghan having said that they had never admitted or accused the royal family of racism was so much rubbish. And Stephen Colbert, who apparently gave Harry a fairly light ride, I am advised by people who are more familiar with the program than I am, see that he was actually sending up Harry. Well, of course, American humour is different from British humour. And although I did go to school partly in America and lived in America on and off for 7 years, I'm afraid, because I'd never seen Mr. Colbert's program before, I wasn't familiar enough to know when he was sending him up. But evidently, he was allowing Harry to hang himself with his own tongue, which is good. But that's why you need to treat television interviews with great skepticism, because the subject of the television interview has to sign a release form, otherwise it can't be broadcast. And Connie Hanley says, Lady C, greetings from San Francisco. I read Meghan is banned from the Coronation. I don't think Meg will allow Has to go alone, as he might be talked into something she doesn't want. You think? Also, she is constantly pinching his arm. Has just has no will of his own, the coward. And what do I think? Well, nobody wants Meghan at the Coronation. Nobody. Absolutely nobody. Nobody. I can't repeat it often enough. Will she allow Harry to come on his own? It will be a very neat solution all around. It improves her victim status. It allows her to maneuver behind the scenes. It would be a rerun of Prince Philip's funeral, which worked very well because, remember, Meghan was pregnant. And maybe she'll be pregnant again. Possible. We know how fecund Meghan is. Harry only needs to look at her and she not only gets pregnant, but she explodes with royal carriage. So that by the time she's 2 months, she's showing, and by the time that she's 4 months, she looks 14 months. Let us see what happens. The whole thing is very delicate, and nobody really knows what's going to happen so far. I don't think even they know what's going to happen, because, you know, nothing is done according to principle. It's done according to self-interest. What a way to lead a life. Binky says, Lady C, I feel compelled to say that blue really suits you. Thank you very much. You wear it well. Thank you. I would like your opinion on whether you believe that Harry will, in the not-too-distant future, return to the royal fold with cap in hand, apologies to no one, but with blame laid heavily on his drug-taking, drinking to excess, and most of all on his wife. I was beguiled by her, quoting now. She made me do it, believe it, say it, etc. If he does, do you think that he could be a useful, loyal, working royal again? Or do you think he will never be trusted, either by the royal family or the British public? I think that's a very interesting question. And I think it's one that many people have asked in their various forms. There would be a great deal of truth to the confession. It would exclude his responsibility, but there would be a lot of truth to it, because very few people who know Harry well think that he would ever have embarked upon such a destructive and devastating path had he not found himself emotionally entangled with Meghan. And I suppose if he found himself a good, reliable, nice girl who was going to be a calming and positive influence instead of a provocative and an incendiary one, people would welcome it, certainly more within the family than within the general public, but it could be managed, and Harry could be tucked away somewhere like in Botswana, tending to elephants, and really rehabilitating himself. Would the family ever trust him again? Would you? I can tell you something. William is not the sort of person who will have unlearned the lessons he's learned. Charles is more the sort of person who would unlearn the lessons he's learned. I say that as someone who unlearned many of the lessons I learned, because after all my mother did to me, and all she did to everybody else, towards the end of her life, I trusted her enough and believed that she was a sufficiently decent person to not be aware of the fact that she was going to steal a whole load of money from my sisters and me. And she did. I was shocked when she did it. I shouldn't have been. I think Charles and I are of the generation that is maybe more Pollyanna-ish and less resolute than the younger generation. I don't think William would have fallen into the trap that I did. And I say good on him for not doing it. But is there some possible way back for Harry? I think yes. Is there some possible way back with Meghan? When apples grow on a lilac tree. And we end with Fabulous Newt says, there seems to be a thing amongst many therapists telling people to go no contact with family members before ascertaining whether, in fact, it isn't the client that is the pain in the backside. I experienced this, but started to see a different therapist who not only helped me greatly by suggesting my deep depression might be linked to the menopause, but when I asked about whether he thought my mother was a narcissist, said he couldn't possibly say as he had never met her, unlike the other one who put all my woes on her. He helped me manage the situation and find a way to best deal with it all. By making me see my faults, I was much more able to find a way forward. You can't fix other people, but you can fix yourself. It's actually very empowering to find that your behaviors are part of the problem. I was never so unhappy as when I saw that first therapist. Not only was she not helping my depression, but I was looking at an empty future without the people I grew up with in it. After 10 sessions, I left. The other helped me so much after 3 that I stopped going after 5. Turns out I have a strong empath trait, and that clashes with more robust family members. So now we just do what we do to a lesser degree, as we have all learnt a lot. My mother does try to be a bit more soft around the edges, and when she fails, I don't take it on so. Some people need to go no contact, but it's not a one-size-fits-all. I think that is such a wise, incisive, and brilliant analysis of the situation where many people are concerned, that I thought I would end on what I think, and I hope you do as well, is a very positive note. And may I say thank you very much for listening. If this has been of any interest to you, please like, share, subscribe, and press the notification bell. And if you are looking at it on the members only channel, as you don't need to do any of that, but no matter which channel you're looking on it upon, could I ask you to please remember to send in your questions and comments, as this cannot be done without you. Your part in it is absolutely fundamental, because I can't converse in an echo chamber or in a vacuum. I need your input. Thank you so much. God bless and goodbye.